Beetlejuice.
So...
We can't do it.
But we could just erase this whole part and then...
Or we could add it and then people will think we're funny and like quirky. Like, they're so down there.
Oh my god.
But now we're calling attention to it. So.
Hello and welcome to our podcast.
It's called Paint in the Pond.
Cast. I'm Eva.
I'm Kellen. We're not looking at the camera right now.
And this is our first episode. The intro.
The introduction to our...
So we have a few points to make in this episode. First, we want to talk a little about our backgrounds in art and then move into why we decided to start this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because you gotta know that. Like, that's kind of
We
important.
gotta know our purpose.
We gotta know our purpose in life.
And for this embarrassing situation we got ourselves into.
This is quite the situation. Do you like to start, Kellen? How have you started your art making practice? Where did your journey begin? And where's it going?
Where's it go? That's a hard question to answer. The latter part, anyway.
Okay, well, let's just start with the beginning.
The beginning of time. The first time I've ever painted.
From the beginning.
I have no idea. But I've always had a proclivity for art.
Oh.
My mom would always make me and my brothers paint little crafts and play with clay and
Really?
chalk. Yeah. She was
Would
like
make
she would force
do
us.
this.
She was a dictator, you could say. But I feel like every child kind of does art. Like,
Yeah.
especially in elementary school.
Arts and crafts.
And I think as you get older, it starts becoming like less of like you have to do this for school, so people just stop doing it.
Yeah.
It becomes less of like a thing in like people's lives as you grow up, unless you're like purposely like taking an art class in high school or something, right? But I feel like I've always, in elementary school, I liked doing it, and then when I became homeschooled, I just like kept doing it and kept doing it, and I feel, especially nowadays, graduated high school a couple of years ago, I just kind of do it now on my own, and I felt more connected to it these past couple of years.
Why do you think that is? Or like...
I feel like when you're in high school or like that age, it's not that you can't be creative. I just feel like, maybe for me personally, I couldn't really focus on it, even if I was homeschooled. Like, I did it a lot, but I never felt like it was this focused thing for me.
Like, it's
Until...
not super intentional, or...
Yeah.
Like, you're just kind of doing it willy-nilly, but...
It was more like I didn't, like, think about it, really. I was just doing it, like, occasionally. I was like, I like to paint. But now it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I, like, need to paint.
You're like, oh, I have to do that.
I have to paint or I will cry.
Do you think it's, like,
No.
become part of your identity a bit? Like, if you were no longer able to paint?
What if I, like, lost my arms?
Yeah. Well, you could paint with your mouth. It's possible.
Should we test it? That would, like, ruin my job. Oh my god.
We could do that later on this podcast.
Like, guys, comment down below if you want to see us paint with our mouths. With a paintbrush. Non-toxic paint. What was the question?
How's art become, like, a keystone? A keystone?
Oh, yeah.
In your
like,
identity.
I feel like it has more. I remember, like, a few years ago, I would be like, or maybe even a year ago, I would say things like, saying you're an artist feels weird.
Yeah.
Like, defining myself as an artist feels like I didn't like that label. I didn't like really any label.
Mm-hmm.
But now to me, art is such, like, a free form thing. So it doesn't even feel like, it feels like everyone in a way is an artist. It
There
feels
are
like
rules and regulations for art, Kellen. We'll be talking about that in the podcast. You can't just do whatever the fuck you want.
I mean, you can.
No, you can't.
He was a dictator. But yeah, I don't know. Labeling yourself an artist is like the most freeform like label. I feel like because like you can be a photographer and call yourself an artist. You can be like a musician and call yourself an artist. You can
be a dancer or
yeah, anything. And so
be a podcast maker.
I guess I've started labeling myself as that, especially in my mind. I think the biggest thing for me is that my family really like labels me that way. They're like, she's the artist of the family. Like, she can paint like the cards for everyone, and my mom will ask me to like paint my grandfather a Father's Day card. Like, and she'll be like, I need it in the mail by Wednesday, and I'll be like, Mom. Damn.
Does she pay you for that? Is that on commission?
No. It's from the love of my heart.
The love of my life.
But that's definitely been a big part of it too, and I think that may be why I like fought the label too, is because my parents or like cousins and aunts and uncles would be like, she's an artist, like she's artistic, she like sees like shitty pencils, we'll give her these pencils.
She's an artist.
Like, you know those like
give her the Michaels pencils.
Those like those artistic palettes that are like $10 and nothing works, like the markers are dry.
Wait, the ones that are like in a case?
A black case. You open them and everything's crispy, crunchy.
I feel like I always wanted those and then I realized they sucked.
No, yeah, and my family would give them to me because like, she likes this, and it's like, no, those are like the shittiest things. But you know,
she likes this.
we love our families, and we don't throw it in their face that they don't know what good art things are. They've gotten better about it. Because I complain a lot.
You're like, this sucks. And they're like, oh.
They're like, this isn't good enough. What about you, Eva? Where did your
my art
journey begin?
I think the same way that your mom kind of thrust crafts and art onto you, my mom did the same. Because I was homeschooled until like 3rd grade. We just kind of like did whatever we wanted a little bit. Like, my mom was very adamant about us choosing the kinds of things we wanted to learn. And actually one of my older brothers, Philip, he was always doing art, and I was really impressed with his like artistic abilities. So I think like he taught me a lot of what I know now, or kind of brought me into the world more.
He brought you into the world.
Into the world. He gave birth to me. But
artistically.
But I was always like painting, or not paint, I guess drawing like princesses, horses. That's like where I began.
I think
Start from the bottom. And I would like make these little books that would be like backwards, like how like manga is, you know.
I remember, I think you showed me one you found.
Like 2 horses fall in love in the meadow, and then I had to like illustrate the horses and like the princesses and all of that. So I think in the same strain, like, you're kind of born into it, right? Like, you just do it and then you keep doing it.
Yeah.
And as the classes come in school, like, you are choosing the art classes, and that's just like, you feel like that's what you want to do, and like that's fun for you. So
yeah, you feel a connection to it.
Yeah. And then I remember I always wanted to like be really good at art, even when I was like little. Like, I wanted people to think that I was good. And so I would like work really hard on my projects and everything. And there's actually this one time when, I think I told you this, that we were studying like Picasso in like 4th grade or something. And I did this face, and I thought it was really good, and I had like the eyes and like different spots, and like the lips were like all askew and all that, like Picasso-y. And then I forgot to put my name on it.
Oh no.
And then this boy stole my artwork.
Oh yeah, you did.
And claimed it. That. He claimed it for himself.
That's fine. And
he put his own name on it, and I was like, "That's mine," but I couldn't like. I had no right to it because I never put my name on it. So I guess that's the moral of the story.
Yeah. Always put your name on your artwork.
Claim it. Then I guess in high school, like I kept taking art classes, but it didn't feel like the stakes were super high because our teacher wasn't like really a teacher. Like she kind of was like, oh, follow a reference and then do it. And so I never felt like I really got any like real traditional instruction, but maybe that's fine. Maybe that's okay. Like
I think that's kind of a hard thing.
Yeah.
To be an art teacher.
It is.
Grade people's art.
Especially with like, or not even grading, just like any form of just like
expression.
This is how you do what you're trying to do, you know? Yeah. Like here's how you do a really good like
apple.
Like realism tips and tricks or something.
Yeah. How long did you take art in high school?
All 4 years. I think, yeah.
That's good.
I mean, there was like the intro class was visual arts or something. So you had to take that one, and that's the one where you kind of learned how to do things a little bit. Like we learned dimensions and like Dementors.
But I remember the last time I was in school, in like middle school, and I was in like an art class. I remember it feeling weird even then at that age. I was like 13 or something. Like I felt weird about like people being graded for their art, and I really wanted to do well. Because my family had been like, you're so like gifted artistically.
Because they actually did grades in middle school.
Oh yeah,
like,
they did. They wrote like grades on the back in pencil. Yeah. And I remember one time there was this project where you had to do like line work. Like you had to express emotion just with like lines, like pencil.
Oh yeah.
Or colored pencil. And like I didn't really, like I wasn't really happy with what I did, but I was like, this is good. And then I handed it in and I got it back and it was like a B- on the back, and like that like feeling like my chest like sunk.
What?
Like I felt so like affected by it in that moment.
That's so weird.
Yeah. I was like,
I feel like that is kind of wrong.
Yeah, right. I was like, this feels so weird to be graded. And not just because I got like a B-, but like
only because
I mean, I probably like she was probably like right. I guess, but it's such a weird thing to judge. School. Yeah.
So my next question for you is, how do you think the content of your artwork has changed from when you began, when you were a young child, forced to do arts and crafts, to now, as an up-and-coming artist?
You just keep adding to I don't know. When I was young, I just did arts and crafts, so like I don't know if that counts as like a stylistic choice. But
what did that look like for you? Because like
I always, when I was making crafts, I always thought I was really bad at it, and I compared myself to like everyone who was doing crafts, and I was like, why do I suck?
Classic.
And then I started drawing, like, I always liked eyes. I feel like that's a classic thing, though, for, like, people to just draw eyes all the time. Like, doodling, or, like, I don't know. It just feels like a place to start for people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I did that a lot.
There's an obsession with eyes.
Mm-hmm. And I still kind of do that. I like faces more. I think I've developed more towards, like, face, like, weird faces. Like, I love drawing, like, people, I guess. And I've been trying to, like, explore that more.
Are they people or are they, like, characters? Like, are you drawing from a reference?
I do both. I feel like lately it's just been, like, from my head, I guess. I'll just, like, draw droopy eyes and stuff and then go from there, but I've been trying to, like, draw, like, or paint from reference. I don't know, my style's developed in the sense, I feel like I found, like, I work way more with, like, colors now than I used to. Like, I used to just, like, sketch, and then I would have, like, a hard time painting. like blending colors and stuff. Like it would just look like a big blob.
Oh.
And now it's more like if I draw something, I like need to paint it almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like I need to add color and shading, and I feel like and I want to like work on realism going forward, because I feel like that's the thing I do like the least of, is like especially painting.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? But what about you, Eva? What do you like? Where is your style going? Where is it coming from?
Oh, see, sometimes I don't really know, but then sometimes I do.
That makes sense.
I mean, I think content-wise, I always wanted to, going back to my brother, I always kind of wanted to paint and draw like him a little bit. But then he would do some like creepy stuff that I wasn't like as into the creepy stuff.
But describe what
I guess.
Or can you?
Well, one thing I remember he did specifically was like this pizza, and then there's like a man coming out of the melted cheese.
Oh, wow.
And he had that like in the high school art exhibit one time. In high school, I was mostly doing realism because that's what she would have us do, is like copy from a reference. But I also found that like pretty limiting. Like I didn't feel very connected to the art that I was making. I was just doing it because like we were supposed to, I guess. I mean, I think I did create some cool things.
Oh, yeah,
it
of
wasn't
course.
like, oh, like I feel like this is me expressing who I am or like who I want to be as an artist. Most recently, I took this class called Visual Poetics, and we were looking at a lot of, I guess, just like crazier artists and the way that they would, like, what is art? And there was like performance art there, like Yoko Ono. I remember I watched this video that was like, she's sitting on a stage. I think it's called Cut Piece. Yeah. She sits on a stage and then the audience members go up and cut a piece of her clothing off. And it just keeps going, and you see like how different people are like interacting with her and how she kind of just becomes this object for them. So she's like the art piece herself as well as the artist. But there's like a part that I feel like I will never forget is there's this like young man that comes up and he just like cuts through her blouse and then just like kind of rips so you can like see her bra. And I just thought that was like bruh.
Yeah, pretty intense.
Yeah, it made me feel very, very just like violated myself as a viewer. So I've taken some inspiration from that, I think, as well as Sophie Calle is a cool artist too, who did like this. I guess I don't really do things like this, but I just think about them sometimes, and then I feel like maybe it's coming into my art as well. Sophie Calle did this art piece that was just like her taking over this phone booth, and so she just like made the phone booth hers, as in she decorated it, and then people came and would like add more things to it, and eventually the police like came and were like, this is public property or whatever.
Yeah,
but
I ruined it.
you know, I think stuff like that, like more dramatic art, is really appealing to me, even though I think about doing stuff like that and I feel like I never will because I don't have the gusto. Yeah, I think I've moved in to more like abstract art styles, definitely from like influenced by Picasso and impressionist artists and stuff like that, but you know, I'm just trying to make my way. Trying to create something that I feel like is doing something that maybe I haven't seen before, or
when you're painting something, do you like, is it really like on your mind how it will affect like the viewer outside of yourself.
Not really.
Yeah, I don't think like that either.
I feel like most of the time it's just where I'm placing the colors or the shapes that complement each other and like give each other space. I don't really. And sometimes I like to think of like, oh, this means that, and like this is a symbol and this is that. But sometimes I think I just overwhelm myself a little much with that. Like, how would I explain this to somebody that's wanting some sort of deeper meaning? Like, how would I be like, this shape is like doing this? And sometimes that really just gets in your way, though, and it's a little ridiculous.
I remember not that long ago, my grandma came over with like my grandpa, and my mom asked me, as always, to like bring up some art, like show off your skill, and I brought some up.
Nice.
And she really liked it, but she's like, what does it mean? And I was like, oh, I don't know, I just kind of like painted it. And she's like, see, a real artist would know, like all of that. And I was like,
a real
that's interesting.
artist.
You say that.
Well, your grandma said that?
Yeah.
Ouch.
It didn't like hurt me. It was just like, it was such a, she's not an artist. It's like interesting. Like not in a mean way, but it was like, I don't know, like how many artists have you talked to, Grandma? Like, you know that they all convey what their paintings mean.
I mean, yeah, I feel like all art or poetry can always just be read in different ways. So that's kind of like a weird way to approach it. Like I feel, I don't know, like you can ascribe meaning to anything however you want. So there can never really be concrete meaning.
Well, yeah, and everyone will see it different and take what they want from it. Like, you can paint something and it means something entirely different than, like, what someone else will see or feel. And that's okay, you know, like...
Yeah. I mean, I think what art, in my opinion, can do instead of just equaling some sort of, like, prosaic meaning can elicit some sort of feeling or, you know, something like that instead. Not just be like, oh, this is like about the inner fascist.
Inner workings. There are times when I draw or paint things that are like darker, I suppose, or like more disturbing. And I think there is a part of me that's aware how people will see it, because I get reactions like from my family or sometimes my friends where they're like, oh, this is like, they're not insulting, they're just like, where does this come from?
Yeah.
Like what?
You're like this,
what?
the psyche.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know, like I don't think I'm disturbed or anything. I just kind of like that stuff.
You're like, I'm messed up. Is
Like,
why.
put me in the hospital.
I'm reading Ben Shaw's The Shape of Content, and I just read a chapter on nonconformity. It was just talking about how, like, we all want, like, our neighbor and blah, 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 and everybody to be a conformist, but then why do we, like, put all these artists that seem to be such nonconformists, like, up on pedestals, like, oh, they were different, like, they were weird. Like, the balance of that, and how, like, most artists can that are really great are, like, very strange people. Conformity is easy, but
It's easy and hard at the same time, because it's like you're always trying to please, and if you don't feel comfort in doing that, then it's gonna be like
there's no reason.
It's gonna be hard.
Then just become an artist.
Become an artist, and then you can think you know everything.
So I guess we should wrap up this episode. Our first episode podcast.
I feel good.
I feel
Thank
good.
you for having me as a guest.
We're both guests on our own podcast.
We like to interview each other.
Our last few things that we wanted to say are...
We want to go over what this podcast, what we both, our vision for it, I suppose. as we keep going.
Yes.
And I think we want to cover specific artists and specific eras, as well as our own stories, and we want to hopefully keep painting along as we talk.
Yeah. Something I was interested in too was like what genre means, what like an art movement means, like how can we put some label on some movement that was just like a passing lane into a new thing, like where artists probably didn't call themselves that or never even like heard of the term, but then critics afterwards would ascribe these meanings, ascribe these like labels, right?
Yeah.
So genre, different art movements,
artists, styles,
all coming up on
Paint in the Pot
cast. Thanks for listening.
Love you.